Generals gathered in their masses, just like witches at black masses. Evil minds that plot destruction, sorcerer of death's construction. Okay, I'll stop. Stay right here. I have a lot to say. So, how did I come up with this? You might ask. How would anyone come up with this? It's real easy. You follow the things that have been put in place for centuries, time and time again. There's always a process of authenticating something like that. Now, it's like everything that you want to do that gets scrutinized, and you lead from a hunting license. You've got to have a license for everything. You've got to have a permit for everything. You have to have a license to drive a car. You have to have a license to have a permit to have a handgun. You've got to have a license for hunting, even if it's bow or air gun or whatever the case, muzzleloader. You still have to have a permit to hunt, fish. You have a permit to fish. You have to have a license to have a boat. You have to have a license to have a boat. For most people don't realize that, because most people don't have boats. Not a lot of people, anyways. And you have to have registration for a trailer. You have to have registrations for a lot of things, like heavier equipment and things. Driving them on the roadway, you've got to have special license for that too. You have to have a license to have a motorcycle. You have to have the list goes on. And then taxes. Let's talk about taxes for a second. There's taxes on the roadways, taxes for registration, taxes if you're buying a home, and the taxes are incorporated into your hunting and fishing and all that stuff too. Taxes into everything that you want to buy or own. You're taxed for a lot of things. And you can go on about all the different ways that, that stuff is incorporated. So that goes into just taxing. Taxing's money. Taxing's good for certain people who need the money for fixing things. Or, you can get into the details of why are we taxed? Property taxes, for example. It's like, when you hear the phrase, like, the reason why I bring up a lot of these things is because a lot of these things get commented in the comment sections, and then I try to touch on every one of them and include them into the whys. Like, because you've got property tax, you've got, tax on this, tax on that, tax on this, and not just that, but the permits. There's a permit and permit and permit and permit. Where does permitting? Where's the money for the permitting go? Okay, so if you think about all these different things, your connection to everything else, being able to control things, there are suggestions and usage for things like internet, for example. How much internet should you have per day? Should you be allotted your 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day, 4 hours a day? Should you be allowed to fly a certain amount of times? Like, it goes into the reason why they want more ID. It goes into everything you do every day. It's the finger on the pulse, and being able to siphon money from you. It leads with money. It also leads with, it's not just for the illegal process. It's for, folks would say, well, it's to be able to process out illegals. If you're illegal, then we would know, because you won't have a digital ID. You won't have an ID for that. And their IDs get faked. So you can become Bob that lives in Michigan and, you know, whatever. He comes up with all kinds of things to come up with a social for that individual. Create your own whatever, you know, your own personality. You can, I mean, you can go on and say, you can make up your own character and become a whole nother individual. And there's nothing most can even do about it. And then it's left, you know, kicking the sand and stomping your feet. But see, me personally, I'm more like the cat from Parks and Recreations. My permit's just a piece of paper that says I can do whatever I want. That's what I want. That's how I want to see the world, is that I want there just to be nothing. I don't like that the world is becoming one world police world, a police world, pretty much. It's crazy. You can't do anything without getting checked for everything. It's just crazy. Has it really gotten that bad? You really start thinking about it. And it's like, well, we want to filter out all these, but see, everything becomes a reason. Well, we had to incorporate this digital ID because there's too many illegals and we have to get rid of them. And in order to be able to get rid of them so that we can have more tax paying customers, we're going to have to, you know, we're going to have to ID you. So the rest of us get punished with this special ID. Well, Bob, you're eating way too much steak. Bob from Michigan. I'm just coming up with some guy from Michigan. I'm just, you know, I don't live in Michigan. I know a guy in Michigan, but his name's not Bob. But anyway, so you're eating too much steak, too much red meat, you know, that's going to affect your insurance. So insurance companies and all that stuff fall into play with that. And that's how you get other companies on board. A lot of insurance companies are becoming a problem because they're starting to just become non-existent. And if you can get all of these planets aligned through all the way down, the money goes from here to this hand. Thanks very much. This hand. Thanks very much. And if you can come up with some sort of ID system that almost just guarantees so that way Steve that works for the government down here will be happy, and it goes all the way down. This also goes into emissions, like your emissions process and everything. I mean, your car, like how many of you that probably live in California that probably had to have a smog check, for example, where does that money go? It's like a lot of these little widgets. Well, I've checked all of my boxes, and you know not to tamper with any of those things, because if you did and you lived in one of those places, it's bad juju. Then there's more fines involved. They get more of your money, and you know, it just gets worse. So if you try to avoid paying Steve somehow, then you're going to end up suffering pretty bad, because Steve over here wants his money, and he's going to send tactical law enforcement to come strangle you real good and then take all your stuff, your money. You know, you don't want to end up naked and zip tied. You know, nobody does. So this would be another show. Instead of naked and afraid, I'd be naked and zip tied. Whoa, that doesn't sound good. Anyway, so basically, the digital ID system is going to be a guarantee across the world for everyone that they're going to be insured, their taxpayer dollars get met. And if you're not a digital ID, and it's going to be a lot like how COVID was, for example, people who didn't get vaccinated, and then there's going to be, well, for some reason, my digital ID is just not working. It's going to end up like that. There's going to be quite a few people who say, well, oops, it's not working, sorry. This is going to gain you access to everything. It kind of like riding a transit system, being able to get on the transit system, being able to get your kids in public schools, because, you know, that's guarded. You know, you try to drop your kids off there, you're not going to get your kids inside. The AI cameras are going to detect you immediately, and then the sentries are going to pop out with giant machine guns, and you're done. So just keep that in mind. It goes down to everything that you do every day. I mean, everything is just going to be one big ID process, checking the box, because everything has become, you can't fly too much and all that stuff, and you can't do this and that, and it affects your life insurance, affects your car insurance, it affects your house insurance, your homeowner's insurance, your apartment insurance, your renter's insurance, you know, that stuff. And it's not just insurance, it's everything else too. It's to make sure that, you know, they get their, it's crazy how many permits you have to have. A permit to fly a drone, a permit to have a radio, like to be able to talk on a ham radio, you got to have a permit for that, license for this, license for that. You got to have a license for GMRS, which makes absolutely no sense to me. But it's just going down the list. Like one time I got in a conversation with a cop that pulled me over for being a prepper, and which I get pulled over a lot for being a prepper, but it's just questioning. Hey, what's that antenna there? That's usually the case. And for most of you that don't know, it's like, it's curiosity, nosiness. That's what gets me, is the nosiness. What's that thing there? You know, four-wheel drive vehicles are going to become one of those things too. Oh, what's that doodad on the roof there? What's that? What'd that do? That's a tent. Oh, what do you keep in it? It's a tent. There's a tent in there. You know, that's pretty much what I live around. So it's like stuff that I have to deal with. It's like, well, don't you have to have a license for that? I have a license for that. Would you like to see it? I have a permit for that one too. Don't you have a permit for that? I have a permit for that too. Would you like to see it? I have a permit. Like, it's like, okay. It's like I live in a world where everything's like permit, 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 permit. Think about how much tax money they have received off BA for being able to fly a drone, being able to use a radio, being able to carry a gun, being able to do this, being able to hunt. All the things that they've accumulated from me is amazing. It's so much tax dollars. You would think that they would leave the guy who pays a lot of taxes alone, but that's not the case. So you got to keep that in mind. That's why they want digital ID. They want to make sure that more of you join me and participate in all the fun activities of paying a lot of money and being tracked. And they'll know if you have your COVID shot or not. Your ID will get revoked. So that's control. Everything leads to control. You sacrifice your freedoms for more security because you get concerned about so much gun violence. You know, there's so much gun violence. And how do you know that's not actually triggered by MK Ultra or something from the government? They've unlocked all the activities of all the crazies. Release the crazies. Now that it's like, okay, activate 110. Which one's that one? Oh yeah, you know, he lives in Boise, Idaho or something. You know, and then all of a sudden this radicalized robot comes out of left field and starts shooting at everybody. Then you're like, oh wow, where'd that come from? And it's like, oh, by the way, you know, because of this, we're going to have to increase security. So now we're going to install sentry drones outside of every building in a 100-yard radius of, you know, you end up in this, one thing just leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Pretty soon, like I said, you're going to have digital ID all over the world, not just in America, not just in England, not just in all these other places. You're going to have it everywhere. It's going to be, you're going to wake up and they're going to know what you had to drink in the morning, your coffee, you know, they're going to know every detail about you because you bought it. They know that you liked hazelnut coffee because you bought it at freaking Walmart. Let's just add a place here. So you went there and got it, or you went to freaking Food Lion, Food Express, some freaking redneck grocery store because you bought it. It's on your digital ID. It's already been scanned. You've already been ran. So they're good. They know exactly what coffee you're drinking. They know where you're, you know, all this stuff. And it's going to lead to other things too. Like some places are requiring you, for homesteaders out there, you've got to register your chickens. Yes, you have to register your chickens because of the bird flu. And if you won't be able to just buy any new chickens because they'll have to all be registered under your digital ID. for those of you that says, well, I'm trying to avoid the government because I want to have, I've got my own chickens, I have my own eggs, those of you that are bragging at freaking Tractor Supply and really loud voice, I'm just warning you that, pretty soon that's going to start affecting you too. Just sharing. But yeah, there's a lot of people who get really loud. And then you got the people who come in, it's like the, oh man, the people who, it just kills me, doesn't it? Doesn't it kill you? Anyways, so, before you go get passive aggressive and start venting and sharing how much more you know than me, just be aware it's all going to happen to us in the end. And so you'll be enjoying my party as well as your party and my party, because at some point, changing things, it makes you not want to change things. It's kind of like your vehicles and stuff. You want to upgrade and stuff. You want to do things. But you end up, in the end of the day, you won't be able to, because if you do, the regime change happens again, and then they come for you. So what's the point? What's the point of changing anything? Just keep living and breathing, right? That's it. That's all I got. God bless. Take care. Stay sane.